Mhm.
Ready with us. So welcome everybody to our first webinar year. It's a pleasure that today you're joining us, and today we have a great afternoon. So I don't know, Miss Clarita, if going to introduce to the Diana, who is and what going to do today.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here. This is our first webinar, our first meeting that we are going to have, and we are so excited to have two wonderful presenters today from ASOCOPI. They are going to help us with a so important presentation about I would say that the role of English in our classroom and in our students' life projects. Basically, is that and how we as English teachers can, play a fundamental role in our students' lives. So, welcome, Adriana. Welcome, Kathy, to our first webinar, to our first place.
Thank you for the invitation. We are very happy to be here.
Thank you for having us. Very excited to be here with the Red today.
Thank you. So, first of all, we are going to introduce Katie. Katie is the Vice President of ASOCOPI, Asociación Colombiana de Profesores de Inglés. Katie holds a BA in Bilingual Education from UNICA. She also holds a specialization in translation from Universidad Rosario and a master's degree in Education and Technology from Universitat Oberta de Catalunya. She is currently the Educational Technology Professor at UNICA and the Managing Editor of GIST Education and Learning Research Journal from the same institution. She has more than 8 years of experience as a professor. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you, Clara, for the presentation.
Mm-hmm. And now Adriana. Adriana is the official spokesperson from ASOCOPI also. She holds a BA in English and Spanish from Universidad Pedagógica Nacional. Yes?
Yes.
And she holds a Magister in Education from Universidad Externado de Colombia, certified as an LA educator. ELA?
Yes.
Is LA a Spanish as a...
It's a foreign language.
Yeah. Educator and Cambridge examiner. Currently working for Colegio Nueva Granada Primary School. And she also teaches courses on bilingual education at UNICA's specialization program and language learning materials at Universidad Surcolombiana at the master program. Thanks, Adriana, for being here with us today.
Thanks for the introduction, Profe Clara.
Mm-hmm. So, welcome. And the screen is yours.
All right. Wait a second.
So remember that in the comments we will be reading you, and also remember that the comments for us will be a little delayed, like 10 or 15 seconds. So as we see comments, we will be talking about it. So we hope that you're very active also in the chat.
Yeah, we are very excited to have you all here. So we expect all the comments and questions that you may have through the chat. So let's start with today's session. We're going to have a conversation on empowering our very own vision of the world. And we as teachers have a lot of things to say, a lot of experiences to share. So for this, Adriana and me are going to be introducing and talking about this important topic for us as teachers.
That's right.
Yep.
So Professor Clara already introduced who we are. We are educators, just as you are. We work on different sectors and with different populations, and we are not that far from I mean, like, as many people would think that working in private institutions or at university, we are far from who you are. We actually are closer than you think. For example, Katie works, as you heard, she's part of the Unica team, and we know that many of the teachers from the Red have been taking the courses that Unica, in the partnership that as part of the Secretaría de Educación del Distrito, has. So many of you already know what they do or what we do in Unica because you have been part of the courses. And likewise, then I have had the pleasure to receive some of the teachers from the Red in the specialization program from Unica University, because we have some scholarships and some other teachers who have joined the specialization also without the scholarship. So this is a very small world, actually. There are many scenarios that we share, and there are many of you that we already know and many others that we would like to meet.
Yep. So, well, let's get into business. As Professor Clara mentioned, we have been doing a lot of things in this field at Unica and different institutions. So we are very close to you, teachers. So we are here with Red Hyntiba. I don't know, Clara, are you going to say something about this important network?
For all those teachers who are not part of the network, would you like to say? Because we know that there are many schools that are part of the area of Fontion. We know that this network has been working really hard. We also know that you are the schools to look up to when we talk about bilingual education in the public sector. And well, that's how much we know about you. But of course, we want to read you.
Because I don't see myself.
Your camera might not be working, but you can still tell us something about this important network.
Yeah, Red Hyntiba Foreign Language Teachers have been working for. We were thinking about when we started, and we started in the year 2004, when all those processes in English teaching and foreign language started to get stronger. Yeah, when all those activities with the Ministry of Education and the British Council started to be created, and obviously the standards, we were part of that process. We were like the pilot project of the standards that most of the schools currently are using. So we were like the origin of all that long and interesting process of the creation of the standards. And all the teachers started to get together to think of how we could start working and researching on our own processes in the classroom. And until now, we continue working and developing different projects for the benefit of our students in Fontibon. And right now, we are spreading out to some other localities. We are not just Fontibon now, but there are some other teachers who are interested in working with us, which is good for us and for our students.
Teacher Clara, you said the magic word. The word that we will be hearing today the most is our students, our community, our. And that is the first question that we want to launch for the people who are now watching us through YouTube. And is, let's talk about our vision of the world. Let's talk about what makes us who we are. What do you think what makes us who we are? What can you tell us? We can give this couple. What do you think, Katie? What makes you who you are?
Well, there are many things that make who I am, the experiences, the contact with people that I have had through my life, yeah, my parents, my family, the professors that taught me many things, the experiences as a professional that I have had with my students, make me who I am. So, what about you, Adriana?
Well, while we give time to our audience, they are saying hello in the audience. That's very nice. Greetings to all of you. Remember the question. Help us solve this query. What makes me who I am? I would say that is very difficult. And nowadays, defining a person only because of the profession, saying I'm a teacher, or I'm a mom, or I'm a housewife, or it's very hard. I think that what makes me who I am is all those experiences, plus all what I've studied, plus all the memories, plus all the new knowledge, plus the books. It's complicated. Now we have in here some comments. Um, Claudia Uribe says, we need to consider that our teaching is part of who we are, and that changes the vision of how we do it. Yeah, that's right. Being a teacher
Thank
is a
you,
big
Claudia.
definition of who we are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
All right.
very
What else?
important.
To define who we are, first is sort of a lack, because we don't choose where we are born, and it defines so much of who we are, and it defines so much of the paradigm.
Yeah, the
So,
context where we are living in.
okay, we have some people from La Salle, Bogota. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do today to define who we are, which is so hard, is to think about this presentation as a map. Okay, we are going to think today about the GPS that leads our teaching being, our sense of teaching. And in here, what you are going to listen today is pretty much a big invitation to the topic of our conference this year. This is something that we've been wondering, and this is something that we've been talking about, and this is something that we've been like reflecting a lot about. And is about that lack of being, I mean, like having been born here. There are now many memes that say, I would have missed this if I have been born in Switzerland, or what, like with all those funny things that happen in Colombia and many absurd things. But more than all the negative thinking, more than all the funny things that happen around us, just because we were luckily or unluckily for some born in Colombia, it's important that we recognize our geographical position, the paradigm that it involves, having been born in a world of the third world, in a country of the third world, right?
Yeah, and something very important in this regards is like not only considering the part that we are living in now, but also where do we want to go to?
And here is where we need to recognize one of the biggest challenge for the teacher's mind and for the teacher's being, and is we are talking about teaching English as a foreign language, English in some cases, and even in some school as a second language, English as a foreign culture, English, and saying that we want students to be bilingual in a country like ours.
Where we have a lot of languages, more than 65 living indigenous languages, and some like we consider like bilingualism is only like English or Spanish. But what about the other languages that we have in our country? Beautiful languages that are part of our culture. Yeah, maybe we don't speak these languages because they are very specific on some specific regions, but we need to consider as rural teachers and teachers from cities that we have to embrace this as part of our concern as teachers in Colombia.
We need to acknowledge that when we talk about
Yeah,
bilingual education, many of our students in Colombia are already bilingual. Not all of us
they
belong
are.
to the same, not all of us belong to the same context. And not recognizing other context in our country, not recognizing language as part of that culture is troublesome for many of us as English teachers, because we feel at some point that we are still part of the colony and that we are teaching the language of power and that we are teaching the language of colonization. And then we need to start recognizing, and of course we don't want to speak for those who are not here, and none of us belong to, I mean, like, at least the two of us, we do not belong to these communities, and we do not, I mean, like, we cannot speak for them, and we cannot recognize us as part of the groups, but we can recognize them as part of the whole, as part of our context. And this is just in the, like, on the big map, but we are sensitive to our context, and we need to be sensitive to the cultures that surround us, and we cannot unknown, and we need to be acknowledged that talking about bilingualism in a plurilingual country is troublesome. It makes us think. It makes us think. Why? I mean, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What is the context of my students? Are my students going to be bilingual? What do I mean by bilingual? There are many questions. Let's see what Cari Cuervo says, for example. That, you know, the authority.
Oh, well, almost a million native competitors of this territory, Colombia, today communicate through these 65 languages, especially in border areas of the country and the settlements located in various ecological regions. So, for many people in our country, their native language is not Spanish, it's not English, it's one of these 65 languages. So we might need to think that their second language would be Spanish and their third language would be English in the case that they are enrolled in any academic context where they have to learn this English as the second language, but for them would be the third. So there are hundreds of things going on then.
And of course, we are talking about the entire country, you know, knowing that in Bogota, for example, we receive students from many different regions, knowing that Cari Cuervo is now teaching Spanish as a second language as well, going to communities, sharing culture. But the point here is respect. When we talk about a foreign language, when we first need to recognize that our native language is very different from only Spanish. As you are going to see now, in Colombia, we can even group languages. Yeah. So on the next slide, Katie.
I'm sorry, where is
it? In Colombia, we even group languages, right? We group languages. We have indigenous languages, languages from different communities, and one of the, I mean, like, and the fourth one, let's say, in the order of appearance would be Spanish. And again, as teachers, we start reflecting and we start thinking, because the English teacher is usually judged, you know, the English teacher is, oh, yes, you teach the language of power. Why do our kids want to be bilingual? Bilingual are the kids that speak indigenous languages and Spanish. But why is it that we cannot recognize that we all exist in the same planet? Of course, in Colombia, we exist with some particularities. And in Colombia, there are groups that exist, population that exists with a different context and different particularities. But that English speaker that was born in the States, in Australia, in the United Kingdom, in any other country, they also have their being, their individual being and their culture. So talking about languages is as complex as talking about humanity. Talking about languages is as complex as not recognizing that that other that we see as the one in power, is the one that also exists there in the territory. Just as we many times do not recognize those groups and languages that inhabit next to us. So this is the first invitation that we want to give you, is how important it is to recognize the other just as other, not as other who has power over me. Because if we go to that reflection, if we think that the English speaker has power over me and his colony, then I, from my position of privilege, would be also language of power for one of the indigenous languages that I am not acknowledging or recognizing when I want to teach a foreign language. or when I do not recognize that my Spanish, the one of my privilege, is also part of the language of power over so many of our communities. This also is part of who we are. This also makes us who we are.
Yeah, so recognizing these differences would make a difference in our classrooms. Yeah, not just saying that English is important because it's English. Yeah, because it's the language that can give us opportunities, or Spanish that is going to be the media of communication for these indigenous communities. So there are hundreds of things going on, and embracing the difference and recognizing that we are living in the same space and that there is a space for all of us, it's going to make a difference in our classrooms. So what is the use of learning English for Colombian students? You might ask, like, why are you talking about Colombian languages and then we are turning into English? That it's a huge thing that we need to reflect on.
We need to start thinking, because it's different if you talk to me as a private school teacher of what is the use of learning English for my students, that if I talk to Katie and the undergraduate program for students who are learning in the undergraduate program, that if I talk to teachers in the public sector, or if I talk to teachers in the rural areas, or if I talk to teachers in indigenous populations. Now, we want you to start looking through your own context. There are many things that have been said. And here's where we would like to see some comments in the chat. There is a very nice comment that I want to read also. I'm like, Claudia made another very nice comment. And I'll read it while you think about the answer to this question. To your students, what is the use of learning English for your
Your
students?
students,
Your students, your context. What is that
your
vision?
schools.
What is that cosmovision of the world that you have in your classroom? While you answer, because we always take we have a delay like of 10 seconds, I am going to read Claudia. Claudia says, I am who I am because of all the people who have walked with me and have made me think about why I teach, how I teach, and how I see myself as a learner teacher. Because those who attempt to teach must never cease to learn, is what they say, right?
Yeah, wise.
All right. So, what is the use of learning English for your students, for your context, for your students in La Felicidad, for your students in Juan Pablo Angel School? What is
For the
the use of
whole
things?
red Hyntiba. Well, while they
Apologies, you can only
answer,
mention a couple.
yes. Well, while they give their comments, I can talk from my context because my context is very specific. I I am a teacher for undergraduate students that are going to be English teachers in the future. So, for example, in my case, learning English is the basic thing that they need to become English teachers. So they have to learn very well and structured English. Yeah. They are not going to learn English for communication. They are going to learn English to communicate, to learn, and to teach. So there are many important things behind learning English in my group of students. So what about you, Adriana? In your context, which is a very different one.
Totally different. When I work for an international school, and the language of instruction is English since students are in kinder. So, of course, the use of learning English for my students is actually communicating, because all the curriculum goes in that language. Now, if I tell you about, for example, my specialization students, for many of them, the use of English would be to teach content in English, for example. So it's completely different, the use of English of my adult students and the use of English of my children, because we always say my, our, so personal.
So
So
Henny
here
says,
they say the context is so important, it makes the difference. So I don't know why my camera is not working.
We can hear you still, Profe Clara.
we can hear you,
Okay.
don't worry.
Yeah, I was going to share also. Yeah, there when we are teaching in Colombia, especially in the public schools, that point, that part of the context is fundamental because they don't have a real reason for them to learn English because everybody around them communicates in Spanish. So it's hard to make them feel that English is necessary for their lives. It is something that is out there. So we need to create like a kind of fake environment for them to learn the English. But now that I'm living another experience, not there in Bogota, but in here in the United States, the language that our students, especially the newcomers ones, need is their mother tongue, like let's say Spanish. That's why we are here, because they need like a bridge between English, which is surrounding them all the time, and their mother tongue, their own language. But there's another thing that I need to tell from my own perception that is kind of frustrated because the students, those ones who were born here or who were brought here at the age of 3 years or 4 years, don't want to speak Spanish anymore. So they are losing their families' background. They are losing their roots. And our role as teachers here is different. We need to go back to their origins. We need to start asking them, well, what's the language your grandparents and your parents speak? Where do they come from? And start working on culture.
I want to add something to what you were saying, Teacher Clara, and is that I hear a couple of comments from you, like English is out there and they don't really need it or use it because everything around them is in Spanish. And it brings us to thinking about that use of English as something that has been, we will talk about it in a minute. But what is English for us? Is it something that we can share with others? What is the purpose? And that is what we want to think about today. I understand that talking about bilingualism is usually one language on top of the other one language erasing the other one. We think of English, or in the case of the teachers who are now in the States, that are more and more every time with programs that I am not going to promote here, but that or advertise. But there are many programs that are bringing English teachers to the States to teach in Spanish, and it's not about one language on top of the other, because that's like that vision in which the other is more or less, in which we are more or less, in which why am I going to learn English? What is this for? Is it for passing exams? What is the point of learning English? And why are they teaching us English since 60 years ago? And that's the invitation, and that's what we're going to be talking about in a couple of slides. But the question is it for real only because we need to talk to people out there? Or is there something there about additive bilingualism, in which, of course, if I have a very well structured and if I have a very good foundation in my mother tongue and in my mother culture, how is that learning a second language and culture can leverage those aspects of my mother tongue, and I can start sharing what I know about the world and what I know about my world with others in the world? How can I learn from the vision others have from the world, from their world, in their mother tongue and in their culture? So we are going to talk about it in a couple of slides, as I said. But is that vision that we have of one language is always like on top or erasing another one?
Yeah, so for this concern of why do we need English, well, Colombia has developed a lot of uh, initiatives and programs to promote English in the schools, in the public schools. So starting in 2004, quite like 20 years ago, sounds a lot. Ministerio de Educación started with Programa Nacional de Bilingüismo, and they developed some important activities and resources and many other things for Colombia turning into a bilingual country. Bilingual in terms of English, okay? But then we have Colombia Bilingüe, like some years like closer, in 2014 and 2018. So quite like a couple of
Recent,
years.
yeah,
Yeah,
quite
and
recent.
recent. Yeah. And then we have Colombia Very Well, very interesting program that they
Name.
developed. Yes. And it was like in a period of time, like 2015, 2025. What is
Which
going
means
on
that
with all these programs?
which means that
That's it.
this one, that right in the middle, right in the middle of Colombia Bilingüe, they said, no, better Colombia Very Well. And
Colombia Very Well.
talking about politics, of course, they needed people to learn English because there were many commercial trades opening, and we have always known that all the policies of education in our country are more than educational policies, commercial and economic and politic policies. Then English teachers, because we are still studying and we still have hundreds, thousands of English teachers in Colombia, and many teachers doing the undergraduate and specialization and masters, and English teachers, English teachers, English teachers, even when we say that this is the language of power and is part of the colonialization. But the point is, why then Colombia, with all those pluricultural, multilingual, and the lack of resources that actually we have, and all the needs that we have, and many people saying, no, but let's better invest money in mathematics, let's better invest money in sciences, let's better invest money in literacy. So why is still Colombia like on top of bilingualism? Because as Katie said, they want people who speak English. That's not bilingualism, but that's a discussion for a different webinar because we need to talk about
Yeah.
culture and many other things. It's a beautiful discussion. But language, only talking about communicative skills, speaking in English. Then we have Secretaría. And Secretaría, of course, says, okay, thank you very much. We are going to do our own Plan Distrital de Bilingüismo. And you have started some years ago with these pilot models in public schools, in public settings, with many alliances that in which right now you have Let's Be Global Citizens. We got in the page and we were like, wow, we downloaded some resources for ourselves. I mean,
Hundreds
it's
of
amazing.
resources. I was impressed.
Hundreds of resources.
Everything is done, and it's provided, and it's free, which is amazing.
And we were like, wow, this is amazing. Why are they doing this? Why the local policies of bilingualism have so many alliances? And guess what? Because of the teachers. Because definitely is the teacher who is in the classroom is the one that is sensitive to what is happening in the context. Only the teacher, not the ministry, not the secretary of education, not the district, no, like, it's the teacher. The teacher is in the context. The teacher is in constant dialogue with the community. The teacher is in the practice, is recognizing the multiplicity of the classroom. It's the teacher, the important, the key piece, the queen of the chess. That's the teacher. That's why you have the boot camps with the British Council. So many alliances and people from the British going to schools, teachers, hundreds of teachers taking the trainings from the United Way, from Fulbright, from Centro Colombo Americano, leveraging the level of language, teachers taking the training courses with Unica, going to the specialization program, showing their skill in classroom management with very harsh population sometimes and some other very friendly population, and with those convenios that we have, with those alliances that you have with SENA. And of course, ASOCOPI is here because we want to be part of it and we want you to be part of us because we really feel that is the teacher. The teacher is the soldier in the battlefield. Notice that all the policies, all the programs, all the documents are nothing without a teacher that truly understands the context. what teacher Clarita was saying is important. Sometimes and many times we wonder, how do we sell the idea? What fake scenario can we sell to our students? And that is something that we need to start considering, because even the textbooks and the materials that we have been using have changed. Even Colombia is producing a lot of contextualized materials and is inviting teachers. If you have been to any of these ones from that list of alliances that you have there, many times the word context shows up, because 20, I'm gonna say 22, but actually I'm 41. I'm 40. I'm 40. Sorry. It's the year, the moon. But I mean, when I started back in the day, yeah, back in the day, they told me about the zoo, the mall, the coffee shop. I had never
The
been to a
hospital.
zoo. I had never been to a zoo. There was only one mall close to my house. My mother never let me go by myself. And definitely I could not go to a coffee shop. So those fake contexts. And when we talk about context, is like, aren't we missing the opportunity to work with our students' context? Don't we know them? I mean, like, aren't we there every day? I love saying that the teacher is the real soldier in the battlefield. Teachers, local policies, governmental policies, Colombia very well, or whatever they want to call it, is paper. You are in the classroom.
You
You
are
are
the
the
ones that
experience.
know.
You know them. We know them. Katie, you want to add? I get excited.
Yeah, of course. So, as we are the ones who know what we need in the classroom, we need to like see what we can get from all these policies and all those resources that can work and that can fit better in my classroom. So there are hundreds of things here. Carolina Rojas says the real and only soldier in this battle. Yes, very important. Yes, very important. And we need to embrace that and we need to fight for that. Yeah. I work at the higher education, but I also taught back some time ago in a classroom with a lot of little kids. And I remember how the lead teachers of the kindergarten group had amazing things to deal with these little kids and their families and everything. I was like impressed. Like they are magicians. You are magicians that you can do a lot of stuff. So it's a matter of being flexible. It's a matter of being like open to this and fight for it.
There is something very beautiful that in the theme for this year conference you can read, and it's something like, even when we use the language of power, yeah, we are immersed in the system. We are resisting the system from inside,
Yeah.
because those fake context is where we need to stop. We need to use their context and show them that English. Let's look at the English paradigm. The English has been set as only a language of communication. Then, if there is nothing out there, as Prophet Clara was saying, like, what is it for? If there is nothing out there, if they don't have anyone to talk to, if the whole context is in Spanish, if I have to make it and prepare something, because it's because of the English paradigm, and is this instrumentalized view of the English that has been sold to us, and that is so difficult to get rid of. I remember, always back to memories, no, because that's us as teachers. That's who we are, our experiences, our context. When I finished school, my mother was really excited about me going into an engineering. And I was like, how can I say this in a way that you don't feel really disappointed? I want to become a teacher. And she was like, but look at your ICFES. But how come? Okay, so what kind of teacher? I say, languages teacher. I want to learn literature. I want to read the books in the original language. The romance that a 16-year-old girl can have around the idea of becoming a teacher for the world and blah. And she said, no, okay, English teacher is fine because you can become a flight attendant. English is fine because you can get better job opportunities.
Jobs.
because English opens doors, right?
If you speak English, you can get the world.
In a call center,
Of course.
English is seen or was seen. Imagine, I am talking about 24 years ago. And 24 years ago, it was thought that the only good that could English make to you was learning for getting a good job. And guess what? We're still saying this to our kids. Not because it's false. I mean, it is not false. It's not a lie, of course. But there is so much more, right?
Yeah, English should not be seen as the language that can give me money. Well, not necessarily. You might need some extra things to get good money, right? But we need to get to understand that English is not only for getting super job opportunities or just the language of power. If I speak English, I am better than other people. Yeah. And if I speak English, my mom would be proud of me. No, there are more things about that. Yes. So English should be taught as a way to open doors, but not only in terms of the money, but in terms of culture, in terms of knowledge, in terms of new connections in the brain, because it opens things in the brain also. I don't know, like many things there. I started learning English when I was at school, but because my father wanted my sister and me to learn English. He paid for the course. I was lucky because my father could afford that. But then I decided to become a teacher, an English teacher, because I felt passionate about that. Yes. So we have 100 things going on here. So what are the benefits of having English in the classroom? Yeah, today. Well, new cognitive processes. Yes. As I was mentioning before, learning languages, English, Spanish, any native language, create new processes, cognitive processes in the brain, and makes the brain like more active.
I'm back. I'm sorry.
And don't worry, it's fine. You're here. And also, we can have access to new cultures, new there are hundreds of contents that are only in English. So it would be really amazing to know from firsthand the information. Coding today, it's based on English. Yeah. Or programmers and many other stuff that are related to professions that are with English. So I don't know what to say, Adriana.
Yeah, I was here and something really strong sounded outside. Seems like it's a cable or something. So God bless cell phones, because I was like, I'm out of transmission and it didn't happen since pandemic. But well, we are used. Now we have the tools. Good. Something else that is some of the many benefits of bilingualism, and I hope I'm not going to repeat something that you already said, is the importance of bilingual brains for our mother tongue, because it is data-based that many of the skills that we learn in the second language, can be used in the first language. Many of the structures and connections made in our brain through the visible thinking skills that we develop when we learn a second language, all the tools and all the resources that we learn when we learn a second language help leverage the first language, improves our reading comprehension, improves all the connections that we make, for example, in sciences and mathematics.
Azucena has a very interesting comment. Azucena says, greetings from Fontibon, Bogota. Teaching in Bogota is becoming hard because the students are a little bit lazy to learn new words, new vocabulary.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's because it doesn't matter what it is. When you don't find something meaningful and useful, your brain
Yeah.
resists.
Yeah.
And
If I
also
see
because there
English
are
as
so
something very
many,
isolated.
and also because we have so many resources out there, translators, ChatGPT, which is also a great tool if we learn how to use it, because everything we need to learn, because TikTok, because of music, because of, there are many things that they are interested in that are actually in the foreign language. So what we teach lacks meaning unless they know where they are going. It's like they also need that GPS that we as teachers need. What we are telling you today, and our metaphor of the map today was a little bit more, was a little bit about where is it that we want to take our English in the class? Where is it that we want to take our students, and what is the way and what is the path that we want to show? We want to keep it local, or we want them to be empowered, understanding that what they are learning is going to allow them to see the world in a totally different way. How is it that we as teachers see it? Do we see it fake? Do we see it real? Do we see it contextualized? Do we see it important? Important for the right reasons? Those are like the questions to keep in mind and to live in the air. We will solve it in other webinars.
Yes. So what's next?
We have 4 invitations to today. And the first one is, what am I doing in my class? What is it that I am doing in my class? I want us to think about it as, if I understand why this is important for my students, why this is important for me, which is what can we achieve through languages? Yeah. No, remember, English is not the goal. English is the vehicle. So what is it that I want to do in my class with this? We are invited to consider how we have been moving in the position of being a teacher and what it is mean in front of this subject or this language that defines individuals in other places, and that is going to help me share my culture. So is English a vehicle, or is English the goal? We invite you to think of English as a vehicle. That's like the first reflection.
Yeah. Well, the second reflection would be on deciding. Decide which are the things, I mean, like identify the things I need and then see how I can get them. Yeah. It's very important to identify the needs, important to identify what's the best for my students. And not only that, but to see how can I get them? How can I address them?
So once that I identify the needs of my context, once I redefine what I want to do, right? I need to recognize what is our vision of the world. What is our vision? What is our students' vision of the world? And identify why is it that my students are not finding this meaningful? Are they really thinking only about job opportunities? Do they have clear all these many advantages? Am I showing them in terms of real resources? Am I using the hundreds of things that I have for free in the platforms for really helping my students, not finding this as an instrument, but as a way to show me who they are or to get to know others in our contexts? So reflect, decide, recognize.
And finally, we have taking action. What is the activities, action plans, or things that I'm going to do to transform and redefine my current practices? Remember, the teachers are also learners, and we are lifelong learners. So what are the things that I need to relearn, to transform, to redefine what I'm doing now? Teaching, it's a never-ending story. You know by heart. Every single class is different from one to another. And that's the thing that we need to consider. What are the things that I can change or I can redefine, reshape?
Our students are not the same students that we were 25 years ago.
Of course.
Our students are the same that we received 5 years ago. Our students are not the same that we got before and after the pandemic, even if you had the same student before and after the pandemic, and you are not the same teacher.
Yeah.
So I really feel that just by being here, you're taking action. There are many things online, courses, trainings, and many other things, but being part of a network that wants to grow together, a community that is willing to grow together, you're already taking action. Now let's take it to the classroom.
Yeah.
That's pretty much our invite today. And well, of course, you're all welcome to share your experiences.
If
We
you
want to
want, of
hear
course.
from you. We want to hear from you in the chat today, in other webinars, and of course, in the invitation that we have today, like for you today, because we also want you to know of who we are and what we can offer to your community. But this is an open invite. Can you share your experiences today, tomorrow, in a different webinar? Well, as long as you want, as Katie said, this is our first invitation. So with this, we finished this first part. Of course, we have some
Mhm.
advertising. Teacher Clara,
Yeah.
do you want to say something to help us wrap up?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just reflecting on what you were saying, and I was writing some notes as my takeouts, my own takeouts of your presentation. Thank you very much. And I would say that the most important for me was that learning English is a way of developing cognitive skills, but not just the basic ones, but the ones that lead our students to create, and to understand the world in another way through the process of learning not only one or two languages, but many other languages. But also, it's a way, learning English or learning another language is also a way of opening our minds to other cultures and to other ways of understanding reality. Basically, that. But the most important is showing our own perception of every simple situation around us, and how we can share, how our students can share what they are feeling, what they are thinking about their surroundings. And well, the role of the teachers as social leaders, I would say I would use that word as social leaders in the classroom. Definitely, our role is so important, and it's important because the way we lead them in the process is the way they are going to take action. They are going to think about themselves, not in the future, but since they are at school. Um, Learning English as a mean, not as a goal. That's basic.
Thank
That's
you. Thank you. Those are very
yeah.
beautiful insights.
And teachers also as lifelong learners. Yeah, and I'm one of those. I've been teacher for more than 30 years, but I consider myself a student every single day with my students. Everywhere I go, I'm learning with them. And I think that's the magic of teaching, that we are learning all the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Profe Clara. So we have
Now we
here
have Miriam.
more important information.
Oh yeah.
Here we have people who don't speak English. Like, for example, the director de educación de la localidad de Fontibón. And he was just sending us messages through our WhatsApp. He said, well, I'm here and I'm understanding everything. He's one of our real
Okay.
great support
Okay.
in all our
So do you
process.
prefer in Spanish? Hello,
Ah,
everybody.
he speaks Spanish.
Okay, if you want,
He
I
understands just
can
a little
share
bit
the
of,
information in
but
Spanish.
he's all the time supporting us.
Okay. Okay, so
Miri, I
I'm
think that's
going
a good idea.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
Spanish. If
yeah,
you prefer, I can say it in Spanish. It's no problem for
yeah,
me.
yeah. That's
Okay,
a good
perfect.
idea. Switch into
Uh,
Spanish.
ok, bueno, muchas gracias por la invitación. De verdad, todo el equipo de ASOCOPI está muy agradecido por este espacio. Nuestra misión, como ustedes lo saben, es trabajar para los profesores de inglés, para brindarles estos espacios donde se puede crecer, donde se puede aprender, compartir las experiencias que ustedes tienen. Bueno, voy a tratar, muchos de ustedes ya me conocen, conocen nuestra asociación. Para los que no nos conocen, nosotros somos la Asociación Colombiana de Profesores de Inglés, fundada en 1965, con la misión de brindar espacios, capacitación, donde todos podamos compartir y crecer académicamente. Nosotros tenemos como asociación muchas actividades que desarrollamos con el fin de alcanzar estos objetivos. Uno de los espacios más importantes y más reconocidos en la asociación es nuestro Congreso Nacional e Internacional, que este año será nuestro número 58º Congreso sin interrupción y nuestro cuarto Congreso Internacional. Realmente hemos sido siempre internacionales, pero le dimos la connotación de internacional desde hace 4 años. Este Congreso tendrá lugar en la ciudad de Manizales, en la Universidad de Caldas este año. Desde octubre 12, 13 y 14 será nuestro congreso de este año, con un tema muy parecido a lo que estaban tocando, a lo que estaban diciendo, from the Global South, our root perspective and transformations. Entonces, cordialmente los estamos invitando a que asistan, a que manden sus propuestas. El call for papers está abierto, cierra el 24 de marzo. Eh, para los profesores de colegio tenemos un proceso totalmente diferente a los otros. Nosotros les abrimos un camino para que envíen su propuesta y les ponemos evaluadores especiales, porque nuestro fin no es rechazar propuestas, sino ayudarles y animarlos a que ustedes participen como ponentes o como asistentes. Igualmente es igual de enriquecedor, pero si pudieran como ponentes sería fantástico. Ya algunos de ustedes han sido ponentes en nuestro congreso, pero los invitamos a que sigan compartiendo esas experiencias. Muchos profesores dicen que es que yo no investigo, es que realmente yo no estoy en universidad, yo no sé qué compartir. Y resulta que todo lo que ustedes hacen en aula de clase son experiencias muy enriquecedoras, y muchas de ellas valen mucho la pena compartirla con nuestros colegas. Entonces, totalmente invitados. Si la mandan por el special call, nosotros, como les digo, les asignamos unos valores especiales donde les evalúan si necesitan una asesoría. Nosotros les asignamos un asesor para que los guíen. Eh, Siguiente, Adrianita, porfa. Tenemos también 3 diplomados dirigidos. El primero es tenemos Teaching English to Children. Los hemos creado pensando en los profesores de colegio, para los que quieren tener un poquito más de herramienta, como en diseño material, engagement y todos estos temas. Pronto este es el siguiente que vamos a empieza el 10 de abril. Ay, qué pena que estoy desde mi celular. Qué pena. Ok, me disculpo, no alcancé a llegar a mi casa, estoy desde mi celular. Entonces tenemos este Teaching English to Children, ya empieza, regístrese, tenemos muy precios especiales, son muy económicos por ser de la asociación, entonces pues solo cubrimos lo que nos cobra el docente. El otro también es Teaching English to Youngsters, que es nuestro siguiente diplomado, estará al final de año. Todos son virtuales, pero son sincrónicos, tienen reunión con su profesora, clase 2 horas cada semana. Y el último que tenemos es el Academic Writing, si están interesados en escribir un artículo, cómo escribirlo, los pasos. En este diplomado se les enseña para que no solo queden ponencias, sino también puedan mandar y tener un artículo de su autoría. También tenemos talleres, tenemos, ok, esto es, los artículos, ustedes saben que tenemos nuestra revista How, es una revista de inglés, de profesores de inglés para profesores de inglés. Entonces, si digamos tienen la duda de que yo quisiera escribir un artículo, pero no sé la estructura, no sé en qué tema, les cordialmente los invitamos a que consulten en nuestra página, en la revista How. Pueden leer artículos, mirar la estructura, tomar el diplomado de Academic Writing y enviarlo. El fin de semana, esto hasta ahora les digo, ni siquiera Junta sabía, pero este fin de semana lanzamos nuestra revista, la primera de este primer año ya estará lista este fin de semana, entonces les informaremos para que vayan a consultarla. También tenemos nuestros grupos de interés de investigación. Entonces tenemos 6 grupos en diferentes líneas. Si están interesados en algún tema especial, vayan, inscríbanse, es totalmente gratis. El único requisito que se les pide es que sean miembros de ASOCOPI. Y ya, a trabajar, a estar con los coordinadores que son todos profesionales en las áreas de los SICs. El último jueves de cada mes tenemos nuestros webinars a las 5 de la tarde, entonces cordialmente los invitamos, totalmente gratis. En nuestra página hay un gran repositorio, en nuestra página de YouTube hay un gran repositorio de todos estos temas, muchos temas que les van a servir para aplicar en clase, para si les interesa algún tema en específico. Si desean algún taller en especial, también nos pueden informar. Y como este taller que la profesora Clara nos invitó, claro que sí, nosotros les colaboramos desde que podamos y tenemos la disponibilidad. El siguiente webinar será este. Y ya, entonces, muy cordialmente invitados al último jueves de cada mes a que se unan a nosotros totalmente gratis, a que visiten nuestra página y por supuesto que sí, los esperamos en Manizales, una ciudad hermosa, ciudad cafetera. Los esperamos para que nos acompañen esos días, bien sea como ponentes o bien sea como asistentes. Como ponencia pueden mandarla individual, la pueden mandar participar de a 2, de a 3, o si quieren presentar un coloquio en un tema unificado, 4 profesores pueden presentar un coloquio, claro que sí. Listo, tenemos precios especiales, tenemos early registration, porfa, si quieren soliciten ayuda, nosotros estamos tratando de hablar con secretarías de educación para que les den los permisos pertinentes, pero ustedes son una agremiación muy fuerte en eso, entonces no estoy segura que no van a tener problemas y totalmente nos vemos en Manizales. Si tienen alguna pregunta, pues con mucho gusto.
Gracias, Miriam. Bueno, ya sabemos, cantidad de actividades a las que ASOCOPI nos está invitando y nosotros también como Red Hyntiba tenemos nuestros encuentros, los denominamos encuentros mensuales en la página, en el Facebook nuestro y en nuestro canal de YouTube estamos compartiendo toda esta información. Gracias a quienes asistieron por su participación, por sus aportes, todos muy, muy bienvenidos. Gracias a Katie y Adriana por este maravilloso momento de reflexión para nosotros los profesores de inglés.
Gracias, profe Clara, por la invitación. Gracias. Y siempre estamos dispuestos aquí a colaborar con todos.
Muchas gracias por la invitación. Esperamos verlos muy pronto, muy seguido. Nos invitan, los invitamos, charlamos.
Los charlamos. Que tengan muy buena tarde. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego, Clarita, y gracias a la...
Herbert está acá, sí. Era de quien yo
desde siempre.
Director local, que siempre...
Desde siempre.
Hola, Herbert.
Hola, Clarita, y demás participantes. Buenas tardes. Complacido de participar en este evento tan importante para nosotros los maestros, fundamentalmente para los de la localidad de Fontibón. Pues no tengo la fortuna que tienen ustedes de ser bilingües, pero trato de hilar y recuerdo mis clases de inglés y entender grosso modo lo que alcanzan a expresar. Reiterarles los agradecimientos por tener en cuenta a mis compañeros maestros y maestras, por el apoyo que han venido ofreciendo de manera constante por mejorar las didácticas y las prácticas pedagógicas de los maestros desde el quehacer de ASOCOPI. Ténganlo por seguir. Ese ejercicio filantrópico que hace ASOCOPI con las uñas en ocasiones tiene un reconocimiento enorme. Por mi parte, pues haré las gestiones y las escalaré ante la Dirección de Formación para mirar si podemos o si se puede apropiar unos recursos para que un número significativo de maestros y maestras de la localidad novena de Fontibón puedan asistir en la fecha indicada al evento que ASOCOPI gratamente nos invita a participar. Muchas gracias y
Ya
un
tenemos
abracito de corazón.
Qué maravilla. Esa es la idea, crear comunidad.
Sí.
exactamente.
Sí, sí, hacer comunidad académica y fundamentalmente en función de nuestros niños. Creemos que podemos tener una Colombia bilingüe. No sé si Clarita les había dicho, pero esta es la única localidad que de sus 11 colegios ya 7 están en el tránsito a modelo bilingüe. Es probable que el año entrante tengamos 8 porque acabo de asignarle 130 millones de pesos al colegio Rodrigo Arenas Betancourt para la dotación del CRI, del Centro de Recursos de Idioma, y un amigo maestro del que yo fui jefe, ex rector ya en la localidad 18 de Fontibón. La hija es una de las altas ejecutivas de Escocia Banco El Patria y me habían ofrecido en principio unos computadores. Yo les solicité la información a los rectores, me entregaron la información, ellos hicieron un estudio sociodemográfico y me van a regalar 200 computadores para nuestros colegios. Es probable que haya colegios que reciban La Felicidad, por ejemplo, no recibiría porque tiene 120 y ya el rector dijo que él lo cedía. Pero habrán otros colegios que estarán recibiendo entre 20 y 30 computadores y qué bueno que eso sirva para fortalecer el centro de recursos de idiomas de tal manera que ese centro de recursos de idiomas se extienda y no sea un aula específica, sino que podamos tener por lo menos 2 o 3 computadores más por salón de clase para que nuestros estudiantes puedan beneficiarse.
Ese podría ser nuestro siguiente tema, la tecnología al servicio del aprendizaje de las lenguas, porque muchas veces tenemos los instrumentos, los recursos, pero
y sobre todo tenemos
cortos en el
lo
uso.
más Mona, y lo más importante, la voluntad y el deseo de hacer las cosas bien.
Herbert, gracias por toda esa gestión.
Sí.
Muchas gracias.
Bueno, un abracito. Cuídense mucho.
Saludos de Adriana.
Chaito, que estén bien. Hasta luego.
Okay.
Hasta luego.
Chao. Chao.
Gracias.